Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us on the 7th round on Label Television. I'm not alone this afternoon. I'm with Gauthier Berchano. Gauthier, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, we'll be talking about two topics today, which is Mohamed Haroun Saleh, a subject in culture, but also the new African Player of the Year, the Mohamed Salah. So before we get started, I just want you to watch the first elements. The story is about a dark yet compassionate look at illegal immigrants struggling in Lower Delphi in Paris. The film is far from a picture postcard journey and something closer to a season in hell, especially for a grieving father whose fate depends on the mercy of the authorities. Yet, as thought as it is, France is also warm and subtly heartbreaking, offering a moving vision of life stuck still in legal and emotional limbo. About the author, Mohamed Saleh Haroun, appointed culture minister of his country earlier this year, is one of the filmmakers in focus at this year's International Film Festival in Kerala. At 17 years old student, caught amid the civil war that ravaged Chad in 1980s, he had no option but to flee, moving across border to Cameroon and then to Libya and finally ending up in Paris. In the capital city of France, he headed to film school, which had found mention by an African filmmaker in a magazine. His first film, Bye Bye Africa, was a personal journey which touched upon the closing down of the ravages that his country and cinema was facing. And in 2010, filmed The Screaming Man that won the jury prize at the Cannes Festival, changed things for the better for the cinema back home. Inspired by his win, the state government decided to renovate the only cinema theater in the country that had closed down during the Civil War, the Normandy Theater in the capital, Jamina. The Screaming Man was the first film to be screened out there. But this year, he made a film a season in France. As the culture minister, his immediate project is to build a film school in the country so there will be more voices to represent his country inward in cinema. This is what extraordinary look like. We just saw this element about the author who is from Chad. Gauthier, I have a question for you this afternoon. What do you think about an African winning the jury prize in Cannes, because we don't used to see that? What do you think about that?
First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself here on this wonderful set. Thank you once again.
You're welcome.
So, relating to your question, what I think about an African, winning the jury, prize of the Festival of Cannes, I think this is really, really, really wonderful, because now we can actually understand that Africans are being recognized all over the world, and
Absolutely.
Africa is a land of talent, a land of opportunities, and Africans themselves are actually measuring, that actually they have to do things so that they will not be perceived as in the past.
They have the potential as well.
They have the potential. In the past, Africans were they were regarded like people with no value, people who don't know anything, people with no interest. But now they are starting to show that we have values, we have capacities, and then they go and conquer the world as well, like the others. So I think this is really, really interesting.
This is well put together. Mohamed Saleh Haroun, actually, he is from Chad, as you know, but he left his country before the war. And I quote one of his sentences. He said, "We don't have the opportunity to see our own images on screen instead of American or Europeans' wine. Otherwise, we have a colonization by images. We have a passion to make films, but it's almost impossible to do it." What do you think he said that it's impossible to do it?
It's impossible to do it because, we have to recognize something. We usually have the lack of technological means so as to produce our own movies, our own films, so as to broadcast our own image. And when it comes to the idea of this colonization, of course, it's true, because apart from the colonization that everybody knows, like, the settlers came to Africa so as to colonize the land, but it talks of another type of colonization. This is a mental colonization, like all the time, they're producing movies, and we only see white women on TV, we only see white histories, white stories on TV, white actors, and European actors, American actors. It's a kind of mental colonization, and so he thinks it is high time we broke, with this situation, and then Africans have to start standing up so as to tell their own stories by themselves.
Absolutely. And talking about his inspiration, and here, after we watched the element, he said he's on his way to build a film school in Chad. What do you think is going to bring to this culture who is not really well known, actually, and also, in the sub-Saharan Africa? Do you think this school is going to help having more talented or having more cineasts going all around the world and making Africa great again? Do you think that?
Oh yeah. I think so. I think so because school is something which provides you with the potential you need. Of course, you already have the potential, which is innate. Like you were born with a certain potential. But definitely, I'm a part of the people who think that you have to go to a place where you have to be taught about the different techniques and the different tips.
Absolutely.
On how to put it into game. And I think, of course, the idea of building a cinema school in Chad is a very great idea because we will have a lot of revelations in Chad. And I think Chadians, young Chadians have stories to tell. If I like to come back on the history because they have very heavy history. As that this is a country that went through a very hard time. I mean, war. They faced war, and I think that from this background, the Chadian people, have a lot of things to tell. And the coming up of this school will certainly train young Chadians who will be able to tell stories in the right manner.
And it's good that you say that because you said the country has no professional actors, no film technicians or cinematographers, nowhere to develop film stock, no government, film office, no public or private money for indigenous cinema. So he called indigenous cinema. Do you think it's going to be indigenous, or we want to see another side of Africa, actually, that they don't used to see on screen?
Of course. I'm a little bit disturbed by the term indigenous.
Yes.
Because today Africa is a modern land.
Absolutely.
Where actually you see modern infrastructures, you see a modern manner of thinking and way of life. So I think when we talk about the term indigenous, I feel a little bit bad into my soul. So what I like to say is that we want to show another image of Africa, as the motto of our TV says, branding Africa. Une nouvelle image de l'Afrique in French. So I think, of course, yes, it will bring another type of image of Africa that the world wants to see, because the world has been always fed with bad images of Africa, like children in the street starving, people dying,
disease, wars,
cholera, malaria, all those things. And so I think we want to show another type of image of Africa.
This is great. So my second question will be, but we used to have this word, repats, is people from being in the diaspora was coming back home. And you know that Mr. Mohamed Saleh Haroun have been appointed Minister of Culture in his country. So what do you think about those repats? So the people who were living abroad decided to come back in their home country, basically in Africa, to say, okay, now we start to change things. We're going to put things on another level. And Mohamed Saleh Haroun did actually the same thing by him coming back to his country. What do you think about that?
What I think is, over the past, we've heard a lot about the brain drain. You see, of course, despite of the images that we see, people coming to Libya, trying to cross the border so as to go to Europe and stuff. But more and more people are willing to stay, in Africa, because of course Africa is a kind of the new El Dorado. And of course, a lot of people who have been living abroad for a long time say, okay, Africa has been stolen their potential. So now what we have to do, we came to Europe, to America, to everywhere, so as to learn. And of course we have to return to Africa what Africa has given to us. So they're coming back, and I think they're coming back is just a good thing, because Africa is on the verge of building itself and
you say
moving forward.
Before cutting you, you said stolen their potential, Africa's potential. Why do you say that?
Because young Africans in the past, they used to think that if they go to Europe, that's the place where they're going to definitely, they're going to exteriorize all the potential they have. And I will take you another an example of a guy from Nigeria.
Okay.
He is in the United States, and he has created the quickest calculating machine. His name is Philip Emeagwali. I don't know if you heard of him.
I have.
You see, and this creation has benefited only America, not Nigeria. You see, and so when I say Africa has been stolen its potential, it's in this perspective. So now it's a very great thing that people now are starting to awaken and to rise, to say, no, we have some potentialities. We have learned a lot of things so far from America. We are grateful, and now we have to go back to our home country so as to build our Africa. And one more thing I wanted to say about this Haroun. It's very interesting because, when somebody leaves his country with a very sad story, for example, he left, his country when the war was waving, and he was reported to be wounded when he left the country. You see, it means that this story might have impacted him in the past, and he might have been a little bit resentful from his country, but he was so great in his mind. He said, "Okay, I'm going to overpass this, and I'm coming back to my home country to serve it."
He used to say that in interview that, okay, what happened in the past, stay in the past. Now I want to change. I want to see the people to see the beauty also of this. Of my country. So we were talking about the cinema in Africa. Do you think there's a difference between cinema in French African speaking countries, or there's a difference with the English speaking countries? For example, Nollywood, well known.
Yeah, of course. It's not surprising that Nollywood is the new cinema industry in Africa that is loved by all Africans. And it's it's from Nigeria. Of course, there is a kind of a difference. You see, in terms of Anglo-Saxon countries, in terms of cinema, that Anglo-Saxon countries, their cinema is far ahead than the Francophone cinema. You cannot compare the cinema.
What is the reason? Do you think there's a reason for that?
Oh, the reason, I think there might be a reason. The reason is that, if you take the case of the United States of America, it's a kind of a melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that all the people came from all around the world and they gathered. So everybody just came with this own history, with this own mindset, with this own way of doing things. And when they put that all together, it creates something like a wealth, a riches. And I think, so this is the main difference with the French cinema. Because, French cinema is only based on one background in terms of culture, in terms of way of life, you see. So of course I think it's different, and this is the type of cinema that Nigeria has benefited or inherited, you see. So they have turned their look towards the United States, and I wouldn't say that they have copied, no, because when you see the movies produced by the United States and you see those produced by Nigeria, you can tell that they are totally different. So Nollywood is telling African stories from an African
point
perspective.
Of view. Absolutely.
Of an African point of view. And I think this is just great. But coming back to your question, I think yes, there is a very big difference between African speaking countries cinema and those of French speaking background.
Previously we were talking, thank you for that great answer, but previously we were talking about the infrastructure. We don't have a lot of infrastructure, no film technicians and cinematographers, nowhere to develop film stock and so on. Do you think putting, I must say, a movie school, does it going to change the game for Africa? And I mean, it's not the first one, maybe Central Africa, but you need to have more theaters also. We need to have more people get involved. We need to have like schools. So basically, I think he has to start. He wants to start by a school, makes great cinematographers and technicians, and then maybe build some movie theater, because we don't have a lot of movie theater actually. If I take the case of Central Africa, what do you think about that?
What I think about it is, I think it's going to make a very big difference. It's going to make a very big difference because when you're not trained, even though you have the talent, but you're going to express the talent in a very bad manner. So I think a school is just going to give a framework and is going to canalize the talent of young Africans there. And I think, of course, it's going to make a very great difference. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. As I introduced at the beginning of this 7th round, we have another topic today, which is about sport. And the Egypt forward Mohamed Salah has kept the most successful period of his career by winning the 2017 African Player of the Year award. Watch this element and more when we come back.
The winner is Mohamed Salah.
That was just the sentence not only the ceremony audience, but the whole people across the African continent were waiting for. 3 candidates for a title. This Thursday, the Confederation of African Football organized the traditional CAF Gala ATO Awards. The edition took place in Accra, Ghana, to succeed Riyad Mahrez from Algeria, playing for Leicester. 3 men were competing to win this prestigious trophy. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang from Gabon, playing for Borussia Dortmund, who won the title in 2015. Sadio Mane, Senegal, and playing for Liverpool, and Mohamed Salah from Egypt and playing for the same club. But it was finally Salah who was awarded without much surprise, we must admit, since the Pharaoh was the favorite. It must be said that the former player of Chelsea has achieved a great year, 2017, whether in selection as in his club. With his country, which was finalist in the Africa Cup of Nations, he helped to qualify for the 2018 World Cup in Russia next summer. Mohamed Salah scored 5 goals and issued 2 decisive assists in 10 games in 2017. Indispensable in his current club, the 25-year-old has also been very brilliant. Under the banner of AS Roma, Salah planted 10 goals in 20 games last year. To this, we must add 9 assists. Transferred to Liverpool in the summer of 2017, he continued on his crazy pace. 23 goals and 8 assists in 29 appearances. These are the impressive statistics of the native of Bassioun at the Reds. Recently elected Best African Player of the Year 2017 by the BBC, then Arab Best Player of the Year by the UAPS, Mohamed Salah confirmed his supremacy by being crowned by the CAF yesterday night. Despite the emotions showing out, Salah had a very touching speech in which he dedicated the trophy to all the kids in Egypt and across the continent.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be... I start again. For me, this award is a big award for me, as a feeling, a special moment for me in my career. And I want to dedicate this award for all the kids in Africa and in Egypt.
Gauthier Perichano, I know you want to tell me a lot about this award. And following a record number of votes, the star was awarded Confederation of African Football Player of the Year alongside Sadio Mane from Senegal and Gabon's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. What do you think?
I think that was a very great ceremony. And,
held in Accra, in Ghana?
Of course, in Accra, in Ghana, it was a very great ceremony. And the ceremony, in the ceremony, there was the appearance of Didier Drogba
who was the
from
MC?
Côte d'Ivoire. Of course,
one
was
of
the
the
MC.
MCs.
You know, the man to whom we say hello, because I know he's currently watching us from Côte d'Ivoire. So there was, there were a lot of surprises, like this one, Didier Drogba being the MC, because nobody had ever seen him, in the skin of an MC, master of ceremony. So it was a great surprise. And also, coming back to Mohamed Salah, of course, he was the big favorite. It was the big favorite because of his record. He's the man who actually qualified, or he helped qualify as his national team, that is Egypt, to the Russia 2018 World Cup in Russia. And also because of the records, as you certainly saw into the report, he scored a lot of goals, not only last year, but he's still continuing on his crazy pace this year. So that's just great.
The 25-year-old described winning the award as a dream come true.
Of course, as a dream come true, because I think this is the dream of every footballer. When somebody starts a career in football, he always wants to end at the top. Maybe playing the World Cup, winning the World Cup, of course, winning the World Cup and winning the what we call the prize of the best player of the year and all of this thing. So I think it's a dream come true, because he said that he would like to dedicate this trophy to the kids, because the kids don't have to dream as he was dreaming when he was young. So I think this is just a dream coming true.
And actually, he was the favorite to win this award. Because Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is doing actually pretty well, but also Sadio Mane. What was the favorite? So in terms of being recognized, have this award?
Of course, I think he was the favorite because of qualifying for the World Cup, and I think this was the major criterion You see, with the major criterion, qualifying his team for
you put that grade. You put that grade because I wanted to say, don't you think it's because they've been qualified for the World Cup? Of course,
that was the difference. Of course, that was the difference. You know, let me tell you a little bit about the records of Aubameyang. You know, Aubameyang has been nominated the best player of Bundesliga, the top scorer of the Bundesliga, you know, championship as well, and he has achieved so far what no African had ever achieved before him, scoring a lot of goals. If I would like to, you know, to make a pop back into the last year, you know, last year he was out of 58 games, he scored 52 goals. Can you just believe it? Yeah. So, in fact, even if you watch actually, you know, debates over sport, a lot of people will say that no, they don't agree with the fact that Salah was favorite in front of Aubameyang because Aubameyang did pretty well. But you know, there is a very big difference. The difference is that our African players, they don't only have to take into consideration what they do abroad, because if we give a title because you are doing pretty well abroad, this title, I think, we don't have to name it the title of the best African player. Or we have to give it another name. Maybe the prize for the best African player playing abroad. You see, but the same.
And they have to put that also.
Yeah, you also have to, you know, to perform onto the continent. If we take the case of this Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, you know, I don't want to say he did nothing, but he came, they did pretty bad into the competition that they organized themselves. And I think this has been some kind of, you know, something that put him in disfavor, you know, comparatively to Sadio Mane.
And as I was doing some research, Salah is the first Egyptian and third North African after last year Algerian winner Riyad Mahrez and Morocco's Mustafa Hadji in 1998 to win the prestigious individual honor since its inception by the CAF in 1982. So when he said a dream come true, I think he really take all the previous players in North Africa who've been there.
Yeah, and you know, if you watch the interview, he said he does not want to be remembered as one of the greatest in Egypt, but he wants to be remembered as the greatest. So I think this time around he is, you know, he has won the prize, and he says he wants to win it again next year. Why not, you know, the coming year again, like the guy from Cote d'Ivoire did.
And he's only 25 years old.
Yeah, he's only 25 years old, so
yes.
It means that he still has time to win. You know, if we want to take the case of the guy from Cameroon, Samuel Eto'o, to whom we say hi, he won it 4 times. You know, as well as the guy from Cote d'Ivoire, Yaya Touré. He won it 4 times as well. And I think Mohamed Salah still has the time.
Oh, as you know, Yaya Touré is coming back to his country to play for the national team.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Oh, of course, as you can see, you know, he has a lot of experience.
He announced his retirement, so 1 year later he just come back, and we're just like, okay.
You know, the thing is, you know, he wants to give a hand to his team because he knows that as you know, as playing such competitions, you know, great competitions, he has the experience, and he's coming back can give a hand to his teammates. So I think it's not a matter of he's not coming in the name of I want to play the World Cup. No, he comes into the name of I want to give a hand,
also.
to give a help. You know, that's the thing.
I was mentioning that just because we have this wonderful and talented player who's only 25 years old, who's playing abroad.
Yeah.
And maybe one day he said, okay, you know what, I did what I wanted to do abroad, now it's time for me to come back home and help the people from my country. And he mentioned the kid from Egypt. I think that's the good start, and maybe one day we'll have
of course.
The same.
That's a very well start. You know, and what is really good is the fact that when you have such a fame, you have such an influence, it's always better, you know, to dedicate whatever you gain as, you know, distinction to the youth, because the youth are going to identify themselves as you, and then they will take example from you, and they will take inspiration from you, and they will surely do even better, because I think what we need is the young generation to do better than those who came before them.
And I will do a little bit of a link between the previous element and this element. We were talking about having figures to identify themselves. We need people to see, okay, we have this talented player. I want to look like Samuel Eto'o. I want to look like Didier Drogba.
Yeah.
In cinema also, we want to say, I want to have that Steven Spielberg. I want to have that...
Steven Spielberg is not African. I would say
yes,
Jimon Moussou, for example.
I mean, is he a producer?
This time around, no, it's not yet producing.
Exactly,
Oh, yeah.
exactly. That's why, because we want to have those figures who embody what we want, because we don't want to go outside and look for what we need outside, knowing
sure.
that what we need inside of us is already in Africa. So having figures and having leaders, that's what I call leaders, to identify ourselves is a great start to make Africa great again, as I used to say.
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's a really great start, you know, because you know, Africans have to awaken, and they need to have some figures. They need to have some people they have to identify to. They need to have some idols, in quotes.
That's what we
and,
need.
I think that's exactly what we need.
Because politically speaking, we see George Weah now. He started from being a football player, and now he's president of the republic. We see Nelson Mandela. We have figures. Now we see we have Mohamed Haroun Saleh. We also have from cinema another Mohamed Haroun Saleh. This is great. We're changing the game, and this is what we want people to look up to say, okay, we have examples. Maybe it's not well shown to the world, but now also our work is to put these people on the big screen and they say we have all we take, all we need.
That's the thing. You know, as figures, as people, we can identify ourselves too. I think for the time we have great names. I will even quote the name of Philippe Maury.
Philippe Maury from Gabon.
To whom we say hi. I know that he's passed away, but we say hi to his family who's certainly
and friends,
watching us. And the loss of this great figure of Gabonese cinema and film, you know, really touches us. And what I would like to say, coming back to the figures, of course we are starting to have great figures like Mohamed Saleh and all the other guys. And I think this is totally going to change the rules of the game. So Africa has a brilliant future in front of it.
We just have to put more light on them.
That's it. We have to put more light, you know, because this is one of the points that we have to raise. Also, we have to address this issue because, you know, we don't even have cinemas. We don't even have places where young people can enjoy themselves on weekend. We have been, you know, brainwashed with only politics. But now it's time that people also can have a place and a chance for culture. You know, because culture does not. You know, a country cannot only be made of politics and politics.
It's all about the culture. We start first with the culture.
Of course.
We start first. That's when you recognize someone, where he comes from. And it's the identity of a human being.
That's
is actually knowing his culture. Politics come
and,
a
you know,
little bit
today, if we're talking about Nigeria as a great country, it's first of all because of its music industry.
Exactly.
Music industry and also its cinema industry. You know, today, wherever you go, you will watch Nollywood. And a lot of people in Africa enjoy those movies. They enjoy Nollywood, really. You know, sometimes, even in my place, you know, sometimes I come at home and I want to put an American movie. They say, no. They just,
we just want an Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it's not great. Movie. We have to eat and see things coming from our country. And we have great actors.
Of course we do. We do have great actors. Of course.
Just like more lights to shine them, more place to help them be the best they can be.
That's the
actually
thing.
Having the best environment, even for kids now in Africa who wants to play football. They used to have more ground for them, more school for them.
Yes, more schools for them, you know, and more space as well, and more opportunities and more chances. Because there are a lot of, you know, last time I saw a young, like 6 years old, but he was, you know, playing with the ball like I was on internet, and I was like, what kind of kid, you know, can have such a great talent? And the only thing those kids want is only schools, is only places, platforms where they can express themselves and express the talent which is lying within themselves.
And I think you just have to do, even government, even people, not even government, because we don't need government to do everything.
Yeah,
sometimes it's just the responsibility of one human to say, okay, I'm passionate into maybe dance, and I'm just going to settle a little place in my backyard to make kids come and just enjoy themselves. It's a platform already for them.
Of course, this is what we call entrepreneurship. Yes. You know, and people have to think about getting self-employed because, you know, in the past we have been We have been taught that you have to go to school, get your degrees,
Diploma,
and
degrees.
then you get the degrees, and after that you start looking for a job, and you sit down home because you have dropped, a lot of resume here and there, and then you wait for them to call you. No, today Africans need to realize that, of course, they have potentialities, and then it's time. They don't wait for the government to find or to provide solutions, but they can go and tackle the issue themselves by, getting self-employed. And if you like cinema, for example, okay, trying to find a little place where you can call young guys and try to settle a very good plan and, try to do something. If you like culture, like music, try to buy a guitar already, try to write songs. And there is some kind of a phenomenon which I don't like.
Which
is
one?
That young Gabonese, especially young Gabonese, they do what? They don't like to work. They're just talking about musicians. They don't like to write songs. What they do, they just sit down at home. They twiddle the thumbs, and when they're just waiting for a song to come from, I don't know, from Europe, from America, so as to make a remix out of it. No, you have to decide yourself that I want to write a song that people will be making remix in the United States. Let us take, for example, the case of Davido.
Yes.
Do you know that Davido has made a song that R. Kelly, the great R. Kelly, made a remix? Do you know that? So I was browsing the net and I ran into this thing and I was like, wow, can Africans make things that Americans will take and make
of course,
a
they're
remix
taking a lot from us. They're taking dance move. They're taking now that they wear our fabrics. They say, and I see all of European designers selling it for thousands of euros, and it comes from here.
It comes from here, but this was not too visible.
This is the background.
Yeah, here is the background, of course, but this was not really visible. But the fact of a song is something that you can hear everywhere, so it's too obvious, and an American taking the song of an African, enjoying it and making a remix out of it is something a little bit, it's rare to see. And so that's why I want to say congratulations to Davido. And I would like also to pass this invitation to young people. Don't wait for songs to come from France, to come from America, so as to say, no, I take this song and make a remix. No, write your own song, do your own stuff, and try to work hard and hard and hard and hard. This is also a form of entrepreneurship.
Work hard, play harder.
That's it.
I think this is what we need to say, and they have to be more involved also in their own lives and not waiting for people to say, okay, I'm going to help you. I first have to help myself, and then maybe people are going to help me.
You know what? The fact of waiting for somebody to help you, you're going to turn into a slave. Because in Africa, there is a proverb saying that the hands that give is always above. So it means that you cannot, give somebody something like this and it will pick. You always have to put his hand, your hand above. So it means that it's some kind of a figure, or it's some kind of a smile, to when somebody gives you something, you always have to be, kneeling down in front of him. So I think now we don't have to wait for government to find solutions to our problems, because
Europeans
to find solutions to our problems. Ourselves, we need to rise up, stand up, and tackle the issues by our own. So that's the thing.
Thank you very much, Gauthier, for being with me this afternoon, and thank you again for the great answers that you brought on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, you just watched the 7th round on your Pan-African channel. Please stay tuned and stay tuned on our program on your favorite channels. Good night.